Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of OVERWATCH Weekly. My name is Sellorio, and I'll be your host for this evening. Now today we're gonna blow this joint and talk about Junkrat. As always, let's start with abilities. So I'm trying something a little bit different with this episode. I'm going to be reducing the number of stats I'm talking about to the bare minimum just to keep things relevant and to stop the overload of information, which I think might be happening. So Junkrat, he's a high damage, mid to close range defense hero, and he has the second highest non-ultimate damage in the game after Bastion. Most of this comes from his primary ability, which is called Frag Launcher. He fires grenades which explode after 3 bounces or hitting an enemy, doing up to 120 damage for a direct hit. But be aware that these grenades can do up to 40 damage to you if you're close enough to the explosion site. Now he offloads his 5-shot clip in about 3 seconds, and the reload time is about 1.5 seconds. So you do get to fire them off quite quickly. Now Junkrat excels at just firing his bombs wildly out into the enemy horde and dealing massive damage. The number of kills you're going to get this way is unbelievable. But when it comes to aiming, your effectiveness comes in for low mobility targets, tanks, and breaking through choke points where the enemy team is swarming the area anyway. Junkrat's mobility ability is called Concussion Mine. He throws out a mine that does up to 120 damage to anyone in the area. It has a bit of a larger explosion area than the grenades he fires from his primary attack, which means you'll have an easier time doing the max damage. Now after you throw out the mine, you can trigger it by using your secondary fire. You can do this either when it's landed or when it's still flying in the ground. A useful secondary effect of this mine is that it knocks away enemies and yourself away from the blast point. This means you can use it to navigate around the map quickly, or to just knock away an enemy who's getting too close for comfort. And since its damage is good, you can also just use it to finish off an enemy. Now as far as using it for mobility, if you jump right before you detonate it on the ground underneath you, you'll actually go higher and further than you would if you just walked over it and you triggered it. After you place the mine, it'll stay there until you either use it or it's destroyed by the enemy team. It has 100 health, so it can be destroyed by damage. The mine has an 8-second cooldown. The cooldown starts immediately, not after the mine is detonated, which means you can throw the mine in one place and then a few seconds later decide to shift it to a different location, or place it somewhere and then use it as an attack ability later on. The great thing about the mine is that it moves really quickly, and its area of effect is large, which means that it's good for more accurate burst damage rather than your primary attack, which is harder to aim. Junkrat's active ability is called Steel Trap. He throws down the trap not very far. It's generally only about 2 meters ahead of him, and you can't really get more distance by aiming at 45 degrees or anything like that. And that trap, when triggered, roots the target for 4 seconds. Now one of those seconds is actually a stun, so it could potentially interrupt channeled abilities like Roadhog's ultimate, for example. The trap itself does 80 damage, and it has a 10-second cooldown, which, like Concussion Mine, starts as soon as you place the trap, rather than after being triggered. Now, like Concussion Mine, this trap can be destroyed, and it has the same amount of health, so 100. The interesting thing about this trap is that it's very visible to your team. You can see it on top of the terrain, but for the enemy team it's actually rendered a bit into the ground, so they can only just see the spikes on the trap, making it a lot harder to see and possible for you to catch someone out, because if they could see it as well as your team, then no one would run into it. Also, just in case that's not clear, your team can't be trapped by your traps. The extra visibility, I think, is just so your team can prepare for an enemy to be trapped there. Now it's important that when you use this ability, you place it in a place where if someone gets trapped, you or your team can then target them down. Because if they're out of line of sight, then there's no real point. The 80 damage can easily be healed off for just a health pack to fix it all up in no time. Now this trap is outstanding at countering flankers like Tracer and Sombra. If Tracer doesn't see a trap and she actually accidentally runs into it, it's game over for her. I've also seen quite a lot of Junkrats that combine Steel Trap with Concussion Mine. So effectively, the person triggers Steel Trap, you have a Concussion Mine right on the trap, and then you trigger that off, and that's pretty much an instant kill for most heroes. Personally, I don't do this because it means that you can't place your Steel Trap when in combat, you can't use your Concussion Mine while in active combat. You're just waiting for someone to get trapped by it, so I find that a bit restrictive. Junkrat's ultimate is called Riptire. It deals up to 600 damage in a large radius. It is one of the strongest ultimates in the game as far as raw damage is concerned, but it is quite easy to counter. The Riptire itself has 100 health, which means that it can be destroyed by the enemy team if you're not careful. Your best bet is to come from a direction they don't expect you, and to that end you have the benefit that this Riptire can climb walls and it can jump, which means you can use the wall climbing ability to climb up a wall and then flank them from behind with your ultimate. You have 10 seconds in which to pilot the Riptire before it detonates itself automatically, and you detonate it by using the left mouse button click. Even if your targets don't die to the Riptire, they'll still get blown away by it, with some decent damage and a knockback. It's important to note that the Riptire does do self-damage. You can easily kill yourself by triggering off too close, but sometimes you might decide that that's worth it to get the kills around you. One of my Overwatch moments involves another Junkrat destroying my entire team on defense and himself, and he was the only one on the point, so the overtime timer ended and we won. The damage from Riptire can be absorbed by barriers and shields, so it's important that you go around Reinhardt's shield or just ignore Reinhardt and try and aim for the DPS. Like many other ultimates, it combines exceedingly well with other movement impairing ultimates, like Reinhardt's, Earth Shatter or Zarya's Gravity Well, which will leave the enemy team sitting ducks for your explosive festivities. Junkrat also has a passive ability called Total Mayhem. When he dies, he goes off with a bang, dropping 6 bombs that deal a total of 300 damage to anyone close enough. It's easy to get kills after you die if your enemies aren't careful, and if you use Steel Trap before you die and you manage to catch someone out with it, you'll be forcing them to stay there and take the full brunt, which will almost ensure a kill, or if it's a tank, do a massive amount of damage and help your team continue the fight. Junkrat is a real blast to play. It's easy to get kills and it's fun to jump around and fling bombs in every direction while doing so. And the great thing is, no aiming required. You do need to do a bit of aiming, but generally speaking, if there's an enemy team that they're trying to push forward through a corridor or a choke point, just chuck bombs out there and you're guaranteed to get a large number of kills and the gold damage. Junkrat has immense damage, but his low accuracy and his low health leaves a lot of room for counters. Zarya is one such counter. If she uses her shield right, she'll get charged from Junkrat's damage, and then she'll just move in and out-damage him at close range. Winston's another good choice. He's not great as a counter, but if you put your shield down, you continuously damage the Junkrat, and if you're careful to avoid as many bombs as you can, you'll be able to beat it. Pharah is an excellent counter for a Junkrat because she is far out of his range, and she deals good damage that'll kill him in about 2 to 3 shots. Hanzo's another good counter because of the strength of his arrows. He can actually destroy a Riptire with 1 shot, and also his extra range makes him effective at taking out a Junkrat from outside of his damage range. To that end, Widowmaker is also effective, because she's a sniper so she can shoot him from a safe distance. As far as heroes that are countered by Junkrat, the number 1 on the list is Bastion. As Junkrat, it is your sworn duty to blow up any Bastion you see, and it's easy because they're so immobile you can just bob in and out of cover and chuck off a few bombs. It takes about 3 to 4 bombs to take him out. Odds are he'll retreat before then, but at least it's a boost, and if your team's also damaging the Bastion then you're guaranteed to get a kill. Torbjorn is also countered by a Junkrat because of the fact that you can take out his turret in 2 to 3 bombs, and that if he's close by repairing that turret, then he'll take area damage from your primary damage. Last on our list we have Reinhardt. Because of Junkrat's immense damage, he can actually burst down Reinhardt's shield pretty quickly, making him a very effective counter to Reinhardt holding a choke point. But next we've also got everyone else. Because of the massive spread and high damage of Junkrat's bombs, anyone who's unfortunate enough to take 2 bombs to the face is pretty much dead. 3 bombs and you're guaranteed to die even if you're one of the stronger DPS. As far as synergies are concerned, Junkrat works really well with Reinhardt, because Reinhardt can put down his shield and then Junkrat can just spam bombs from behind it while being protected, which counters the fact that he's got low health. Zarya is another for much the same reason. She can bubble the Junkrat, he can get out there in close range and deal massive damage to everyone. And, as with most heroes, any healer works well with a Junkrat. He's not too mobile to make aiming with an Ana difficult. As for a DPS, I'd recommend a McCree or a Soldier. They can balance out Junkrat's low precision damage with their high precision damage, also countering the Pharah that might counter the Junkrat. As a result of the Omnic crisis, Australia became ground zero for a radioactive wasteland, resulting from the destruction of the Omnium that was attacking there. Junkrat is a survivor, living in the remains of the Australian outback, having managed to survive the radiation and the harsh conditions. He spent his time scavenging remains from the Omnium that was destroyed, until he found something particularly valuable. After several attacks and threats to his life, he hired Roadhog to help protect him. After this happened, they started traveling the world, robbing banks such as the one in Dorado, and blowing up as much as they could in the process. Their bounty reached as high as $25 million. Due to his history in the wastelands, Junkrat enjoys nothing more than blowing up some Omnics, as you can hear from several of his voice lines. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the episode. Please take the time to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And as always, we're always glad to hear your feedback in the comments, and your opinions about anything I've covered in the episode. And for more pun-filled informational episodes, join us next week as we go over Lucio. See you then.